Hey Guardians, welcome back, and I want to show you my Stasis Warlock build, and is this thing amazing for the new dungeon. Let's get right into the build. So we are on the Shadebinder Stasis Warlock subclass, using Winter's Wrath, with a Healing Rift, Burst Glide. I like using Burst Glide because it gives that strong initial force when you jump in your glides. Penumbral Blast. Penumbral Blast is our charged melee. Comes in very handy when we freeze our targets and creates the shatter damage. And Cold Snap Grenades. Cold Snap Grenades I like to use because when you throw these grenades, what they do is once they shatter, they send out seeker projectiles that go and freeze other targets. So this is going to work very nicely with our aspect coming up I'm going to show you, and with the exotic weapon that I have chosen for this build. It just synergizes very well. You can use dust field grenades if you like with that lower base cooldown, but I feel that the Cold Snap grenades just work phenomenal with this build. First aspect we're running with this build is Ice Flare Bolts, which gives us 2 fragment slots. What Ice Flare Bolts does is when you shatter a frozen target, it spawns the seekers that go and freeze nearby targets. So Ice Flare Bolts on top of the Cold Snap Grenades will send out seekers to freeze nearby enemies. And what is nice is if there's a big group up of enemies or trash mobs, you can freeze these enemies, destroy one of these enemies, and create huge amounts of shatter damage for a burst DPS. Can't get any better than that. Next aspect is Glacial Harvest. Glacial Harvest gives us 2 fragment slots, which freezing targets create stasis shards around the frozen targets. Higher tier combatants create more shards. So all this does is when you defeat frozen targets, it's going to create stasis shards for us, and these shards help us regenerate our abilities, our grenades, our melees, our class ability. We're not creating wells in this build, but we are creating the shards which take place of the wells. So with these 2 fragment slots combined gives us these 2 aspects give us 4 fragment slots. The first fragment is Whisper of Fissures. Whisper of Fissures increases the damage and the size of the burst of the stasis crystal, and when you destroy it, stasis crystals, and it defeats frozen targets. So what all this is saying is when you defeat an enemy with the stasis weapon, you create a shockwave of stasis energy, and it increases that radius and creates more shatter damage. So with our exotic we're using, this is very handy. Next is Whisper of Chains. While you're near frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from the targets. This gives us a +10 recovery, and it also, like it says, gives us a reduced weapon damage from targets. So it aids in our resilience and increases our survivability with this build. Next is Whisper of Torment. Whisper of Torment grants you grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. So you may be asking yourself, well, that's kind of counterintuitive. Why would I want to take all this damage just to get my grenades back? Well, the remedy to that is our prior fragment, Whisper of Chains. So while we're taking damage, if we're near frozen targets or near a ally stasis crystal, we get that resilience. And with that resilience, we're going to stay up longer. By staying up longer and taking damage, we're getting our grenades back quicker. A little bit of synergy going on, and it works very nicely. Last fragment, Whisper of Durance. Whisper of Durance is your slow from your abilities last longer. So when you slow is like freezing your targets. So when you freeze these targets, they stay frozen for that much longer, which comes in clutch sometimes when you're getting pushed back and you're trying to retreat and kind of get your health back. You can freeze these targets, back off a little bit if you want, or push forward and create that burst DPS shatter damage. The exotic of choice is Aegir's Scepter. Aegir's Scepter is an amazing exotic, especially when you guys get the catalyst for it. What the catalyst does is it drains your super and creates an alternate firing mode. So what it does is it increases the magazine and empowering the beam with bonus damage and ability to slow and freeze targets. And while you're using this, what it does is your reserve ammo you have for this weapon is going to constantly restart refilling the magazine, so you won't run out until you run out of ammo completely. Now this particular exotic is going to go hand in hand with the exotic armor piece I have for it. And what this weapon has done has actually become my super. Now, as you know, with the Stasis lock, you have Winter's Wrath, which, don't get me wrong, is a strong super in itself. But with Ager's Scepter, using the super to charge that weapon gives you an amazing DPS. Give it a try. Next weapon, which I kind of switch between weapons, but right now I am using the Amit AR-2, which is a legendary auto rifle. I'm trying to level mine up to get some better perks on it. Right now mine comes with dynamic sway reduction and adaptive munitions, which dynamic sway reduction just makes it more accurate and more stable while you're holding down the trigger. Adaptive munitions, well, the weapon will adapt to different shield types that aren't solar. So it's like having a all-in-one weapon against multiple shield types. It's not going to tear through them like super fast, so don't go in expecting you're going to be able to tank everything with just that one weapon. But it does come in handy if you're lacking certain elemental types to fight shields. It'll come in handy and help out immensely. Heavy weapon is the legendary Chain of Command, which is the Vanguard LMG heavy machine gun. I like to run mine with Adrenaline Junkie. Adrenaline Junkie is a weapon. The weapon gains increased damage and handling from final blows with grenades or the weapon itself. So the more final blows you get with it or grenade kills you get, the stronger the weapon is. Demolitionist. I love using Demolitionist because I love to spam my grenades. When you get kills with this weapon, you generate grenade energy. And I like my origin trait to be Vanguard's Vindication because final blows with the weapon grant you health. And this particular weapon does come with a Masterwork 10 range. It comes in very clutch. Helmet is a Stasis helmet. I like to run a minor resilience mod with Harmonic Siphon. Harmonic Siphon is rapid weapon final blows with damage matching your subclass, which Ager's Scepter will generate ores of power for us. And with Ager's Scepter, you're going to be finding yourself using a lot of ammunition for this particular thing. So you're going to want to throw on a trace rifle ammo finder just to find more ammo for it. Next is Elemental Time Dilation. With Elemental Time Dilation, if you have any buffs that have a timer on them, let's say increased weapon damage or increased resilience or whatever you're using, Elemental Time Dilation will lengthen that time out for you. So let's say in my particular build, is when I get kills with Ager's Scepter, I get that shatter damage, and that shatter damage allows me to get a increased weapon damage stasis weapon buff. So Elemental Time Dilation will lengthen that buff out for me. Next are Stasis Gauntlets that I have a resilience mod. Fastball, which just allows you to throw your grenades further. Melee Kickstart, which when your melee energy is fully expended, you gain melee energy. And then Elemental Armaments. Elemental Armaments is when combatant weapon final blows with a damage type matching your subclass, which we use Ager's, will escalate the chance that we generate stasis shards, which these shards allow us to generate our abilities. Next is the exotic armor piece of choice, which is the Mantle of Battle Harmony. The Mantle of Battle Harmony goes hand in hand with Ager's Scepter. Now, as I said, with Ager's Scepter, once you get the catalyst, you're able to convert your super into just a boss DPS machine. With absorption cells, takedowns with weapons that have a damage type matching your subclass grant your subclass element grant you super energy. So while your super energy is full, you instead gain a temporary bonus to weapon damage of the type matching your subclass. So let me break this down. What this is saying is when you're using Aegir's Scepter and you use the alternate fire mode, it allows you to use your super as to charge the weapon to do increased weapon damage, which is 80% weapon damage increase. And what it does is it slowly drains your super, but you're constantly doing that damage with Aegir's. So the Mantle of Battle Harmony is allowing you to use your super to just destroy anything with Aegir's Scepter. I have actually taken this build into the new dungeon, and it works amazingly, flawlessly. I don't want to get into too many details because for those who haven't done the dungeon, I don't want to spoil anything for you. But I highly recommend bringing in a Stasis build of some sort. This works very good, and give it a try and see for yourself. Mods I like to run are the Minor Resilience mod, Trace Rifle Reserves, which increases the amount of Trace Rifle ammo we can carry, Energy Diffusion Substrate, which is a seasonal artifact mod, which it allows us to have increased resilience to damage from enemy combatants, and Font of Might. So what Font of Might does is picking up our elemental shards, our stasis shards, allows us to have an increase of weapon damage. Next is my Solar Boots, which has a resilience mod, double innervation, which allows every time I pick up the Orb of Power, thanks to Harmonic Siphon, it cools down my grenades that much quicker. And High Energy Fire. High Energy Fire is when you're charged with light, it gives you an increased weapon damage, and when you defeat a combatant, it will take a stack of charge of light. Next is the class item, Resilience mod, Double Bomber. Double Bomber reduces our grenade cooldown when using our class ability. So when we use our rifts, it allows us to generate more grenades. And Elemental Charge. Elemental Charge is when you become charged with light by picking up Elemental Wells. Elemental Wells are going to be our shards. And what this does is when we pick these up, it will proc High Energy Fire, which a High Energy Fire gives us increased weapon damage, and will also proc our Font of Might, which gives us even more weapon damage. So we're stacking weapon damage upon weapon damage. Everything synergizes very nicely with this build. Highly recommend you Guardians give this thing a try. So much fun. Like I said, it comes in handy in the new dungeon. If you haven't done it already, by all means give it a shot. And as always, Guardians, stay safe out there.